He came back when the world needed him the most. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and variations thereupon, to the most belabored video to ever. The amount of times I've pushed this video back, promised it was going to be out next week, is shameful, and quite frankly, I've lost respect for you if you stuck around for this. You shouldn't be here. Have some goddamn self-respect, audience. So, Kursaal, or as I knew it prior to reading that one where Sam Jones becomes a werewolf for like a day.
Why didn't you tell me that you are a werewolf? I said I was a dog person. Man, you're right.
This was always going to be a hard one after Alien Bodies. I think the term people like us use for books like this is trad. We're on a colony world, there's a corporation, there's werewolves. It's microwave Doctor Who. That sounds way meaner than I mean it to be, but for all the bitching I'm going to do, this is not bad. The prose has some awkward points, but there's a fair few things I like. This guy does know how to write, and it's got some personality, especially in some of the side characters. Some of them are really funny. It doesn't feel like it's just a formula on legs. So you can't even get mad at it like that. It's just a fairly inconsequential novel that happened to ruin my life. The planet Kursaal has been left to the tender mercies of a galactic-spanning conglomerate who are interested in building as many theme parks as possible at the expense of all the historical sites and most of the residents who lived there. One historical site in particular that's also of the interest to the group that are opposing Grey Corp was a cathedral to an ancient alien race called the Jacks. It's standard commentary, but there's also some interesting ideas in regards to the Jacks themselves. We're initially led to believe that this is the name for the species of werewolves, but it's actually the name of the virus. They just took on the form of wolves when wolves started to inherit the virus, because wolves make better predators than humans. But all of these reveals just come in the form of lore, and it's honestly very easy to forget. Peter, the writer for this, I'm only familiar with one other story of his, other than what I've heard about the Ancestor Cell, which I'll get to in a few decades. The only other story I know, it's Pest Control. I put it on a Halloween recommendations list. There I mentioned the atmosphere that's brought about by the music, the sound design, and the narration. I talked less about the writing though, and there's a fair bit to compare between Pest Control and this one. One has a colony world. The other is an alien planet. One has corporations versus rebels. The other has soldier factions. One has giant bugs, the other has werewolves. Peter has also been on record saying that it wasn't too much of a challenge to incorporate 8 and Sam into this story. I think that's definitely down to his skill as a writer, but it does also say something about the story if it can include any Doctor and any companion. Still, not always a bad thing. A fair few stories, especially from Classic Who, could feature any Doctor and companion. I'm more inclined to roll with Doctor Who that doesn't push the boat out when it's on TV, because there I understand there are schedules to fill, there are limitations. But if you just want middle of the road Doctor Who because, you just like Doctor Who, by this point there's so much TV stuff that I don't know why you need Doctor Who for the sake of being Doctor Who in your expanded media behind higher paywalls. I think this book uses 8 and Sam pretty decently. They get wholesale scenes where they just get to hang out, have fun. The book remembers that they are at a theme park. It balances all the eye rolls and the unease that's been happening since Vampire Science. One thing I really like is that the third act takes place after a time jump. 8 and Sam think they've resolved the plot early, so they head off and arrive 15 years later. It's very The Ark, and it actually adds quite a bit of pathos to the side characters. That's when I was the most into it. I think if the third act had basically been the whole book, I would have had a bit more fun with it, because the set piece is really good. Werewolves in a theme park whilst a bunch of people whose job it is to be in werewolf costumes are just getting in the way and getting under the police's feet. That's great. There's some really decent horror comedy there. I really like the dialogue, and I think if this had been on TV, it would have been a decent chance to let one of the actors flex. But Sam doesn't transform fully. She just gets an evil turn, and then there's an explosion, and then she's better again. Alright, it's the opposition's turn to speak.
Women!
Yeah, that tracks. Well, V&A next time, whenever that may be. I want to not dismiss any of the lesser known entries. I want to give as many of these as possible a fair shake. But then you do realise why they have the reputations they do. Hope you enjoyed my triumphant return. But please stay tuned. I've got some really fun projects coming up, and I can't wait to share them with you. Take care of yourselves.